Mr. Rudolf Porsch has a fascinating career, really someone who knows in particular the German media very well. Very happy actually, Mr. Porsch, you're the first German speaker that we've had, despite this being a freedom of expression conference here in Germany. So I'm also very happy to have you here, especially from the German perspectives. Now, the career of Mr. Porsch is quite extensive. I will try to mention the highlights. He initially did his studies at the University Friedrich Alexander Universität in Erlangen in Germany. Then his MBA at the University, or the Europa University, Viadrina, in Frankfurt am Oder, which is a fascinating university for those who don't know it, right on the border of Poland, where it's actually a great example of Polish-German collaboration. So an interesting example of cultural diplomacy in and of itself. And then his career as a journalist really takes him all around the world. Initially working at the Ullstein Verlag here in Berlin, then the Keene Sentinel in New Hampshire, USA, just a few hours north of where I grew up in Massachusetts. Then he came back to Germany, and you can see his rise in the media profession. Step by step. First, he was editor of the daily newspaper, the Berliner Morgenpost, which many of us know about. Then he became head of the news departments in 1988 of Radio 106 Berlin, or Radio 106. He then, in the year 1990, moved to the Berliner Morgenpost again, this time with the position of managing editor. He had that position as managing editor of the Berliner Morgenpost until the year 2000. From the year 2000, he then became the deputy director of the Journalistenschule Axel Springer, which is the journalism school of the Axel Springer Verlag, or Axel Springer Publishing House. Then he continued in that job until 2006. In 2007, became the managing editor of the Academy for Journalism at the Axel Springer Akademie. His current position, since February of 2010, is the Deputy Director of the Academy for Journalism. So you can see here really having begun in his heart as a journalist, I think in the best sense of the word, getting more and more involved with teaching and also administration. I think the impact that you're having at the Axel Springer Verlag will give you some wonderful experiences and perspectives to share with us in your lecture. So if you could please join me in a very, very warm welcome for Mr. Rudolf Porsch. Thank you.
So first of all, thank you very much for having us here. I'm not alone here. I brought with me two students I will introduce to you later. And if you don't mind, I first of all want to tell you a little bit more about who we are, what is our company, what are we doing, and how are we doing. The point is that the Axel Springer Academy is a school of journalism, simply a school of journalism and nothing else than a school of journalism. Even it's called an academy or whatever, but we are a school of journalism. We are linked, or we are run by a company, by the Axel Springer Company, what is a big media house, and I may say it's the biggest newspaper publishing house in Europe, because we have very good circulation figures with especially one brand, but that doesn't matter here. And we are on our way to shift from a printing publisher to a multimedia company. And that's the reason why we started 5 years ago, or almost 6 years ago from now, the Axel Springer Academy. And we are very much focused on cross-media, multimedia training. We offer vocational training and continuing training for experienced journalists as well. And we offer a 2-year program. And our students join us after they have graduated at university. So the average age is around about 25, 26 when they join us and attend our academy for 2 years. And we also run a daily paper that is called the Weltkompakt. It's a small little tabloid edition of a big broadsheet paper. So that is the opening words about who we are, what are we doing. And to come to the point here, don't be a maybe on the freedom of the press. I have to say we are in a very, very lucky situation. Absolutely lucky, because we live under healthy and democratic conditions, and I think sometimes we are not aware of the freedom of the press that we enjoy. And so the problem is when we try to figure out what does freedom of the press mean for our day-by-day work, we figured out that freedom dies by inches. And I want to focus here not on the external threats we have heard a lot about by Professor Philipson. I would like to emphasize or to focus on the internal threat. And in these terms, to some extent, I can say I'm a potential threat to the freedom of the press. as a journalist. And that is what I, if you don't mind, would say a few words about that for the next 10 minutes. At Axel Springer, we have figured out that there is the freedom of the press is not guaranteed unconditionally. There is, of course, there can be a bad manner of behavior from journalists that threatens freedom of the press. And so we figured out the internal threats. That looks good. That doesn't look good. I'm sorry for that. You can get it. And in Germany, we have a saying, do you have PowerPoint or do you have something to say? So I try to make it without PowerPoint. And, okay. And so my company tried, a couple of years ago, 8 or 9 years ago from now, my company started to figure out, to name special kinds of behavior as a threat. And in a code of conduct, the company that is mandatory for every employee, for every journalist in the company says, please do not do that and that to prevent internal threats for the freedom of the press. And this code of conduct aims to guarantee the freedom of the press. And there are a lot of pages, but the most important is the freedom of the press, and the very most important is what we call the guidelines to safeguard journalistic independence within our company. And that is, just to repeat that, there is no external threat. We think there is an internal threat, because journalists are not forced or urged to behave in this or that way, but they have to be aware of what they are doing. And so this is written down or stated in this code of conduct, and in particular in this guidelines. These guidelines deal, for example, with, and now I mentioned some of these threats, of the distinction of advertising and editorial. You might say, that's of course, what is he telling? That's so obvious, that's evident. No, that's not evident in the day-by-day business of editorial stuff in Germany, because pretty often there are a lot of companies and a lot of PR, public relation experts who know how to bribe a journalist. And so you have to sharpen the awareness of that. These guidelines also deal with the journalist, the editor's interest with his personal or his professional interest. Just to mention in political department or economic department, this actually is really, really important to distinguish. Next thing is to prevent exercise of personal advantage. It's quite easy to drive a new car, and I do not have to tell all this. And so, last but not least, just to mention, we also, that makes us a little bit different. At Axel Springer, we also have 5 essentials as a part of a constitution. They were made by, 4 of them, or 3 of them, were written down by our founder, Axel Springer, who died in 1985. They do not deal with exactly with the freedom of the press, so I do not go into the depth now. If you are interested in, we can do it in private talks later, but just to mention that. What for me is more important is the main threat, I think, in my perception, is the indifference, the half-hearted attitude, the phlegma of journalists who do their job. And there are a lot of problems, even if these, or in particular, if these journalists do an excellent job. Just to mention 2 little examples in this way. The first one is, if they do an excellent job, what does it mean? In other terms, that means they meet the interest of their audience. So they are very well accepted. What does that mean? They are focused on what their audience wants, rather than what their audience needs. And here, the threat for freedom of press begins, in my perception. I don't know if you want to follow me with that. Because it makes journalistic work exchangeable, less precious. The second thing is, and that is also evident and every journalist knows, the lack of time, the shortage of time. That means I'm always in a hurry, I'm always in a race to publish first. But what has changed? In ancient times, once there was a newspaper, a radio show, a TV show, or whatever, and there was a deadline. And within this deadline, you had the opportunity, the chance, or whatever, the time, okay, short time only, but you had the time to think about, to consider, to write, to work. Today there is internet, and the internet means there's no deadline at all. No deadline anymore. That means you have to, as a journalist, you have to publish immediately. Sometimes publish first and think then, after that. And that means, in other words, because your audience expects that. They expect almost simultaneously simultaneous coverage. And that means that journalist work shifts more from product to process, as Jeff Jarvis from New York University called it. A process journalism is a collaborative journalism in a dialogue with the audience. What does the audience want? Where are the clicks? Where is the interest going? Which interests do I have to meet? And Jeff Jarvis continues and carries on, and I'm afraid he's right. That is a shift from, as he called it, alpha to beta journalism. And beta journalism already shows that it is a minus, a decree in quality. And though we are here only talking about quality or ethical issues, I think it's also a threat of the freedom of the press because it weakens the awareness for the precious, for the price, for the value of the freedom of the press. And therefore, we at Axel Springer, and I'm proud of my company and what I'm doing, we first of all require passion. I mentioned we have 80 students and we have more than 1,000, really more than 1,000 applicants every year. And what do we require? What do we want to have from them? Talent, of course, a little bit media experience, of course. We do not care about any marks or credits or whatever, no. We look for an attitude as a journalist and for passion. That is a selection criteria for us, passion. Because we have to be sure that they have the motivation to fight for independent journalism. And so within our agenda, within our syllabus, every half year we ask journalists, do you want to do an exercise of what we call a masterpiece? And in December, the team of 20, we split this 80 up in 4 teams. Each team has 20 students. The team in December, the 20 young men and ladies, did a masterpiece, what we called 2012. It is, the German word is 2012, it's 2012. It's because of the year 2012, and then it's focused on freedom of the press. And I'm happy, please come up and join me. Do you have a microphone, Giuseppe? I'm happy, these 2 students of ours, Alexandra Zykonov and Max Böhnke, they will tell you a little bit more about, können Sie mal schnell die Seite eingeben? They will tell you more about this project 2012, machen Sie mal bitte. More about this project where they were focused on, it's okay. Where they were focused on examples where the freedom of the press is endangered, and you can see there's no big threat or a bad government or whatever. It is always bargaining with journalists. Hey, you give me that and I give you the news. That is the deal. But the point is, how much can you pay me, and when is the point reached where you will buy me? That should never happen. You are okay? Seid ihr schon?
We are, but the internet isn't. But
Well, I guess we'll get there
Okay.
at some point, I hope.
You want to start?
Yeah, sure.
So go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for having us. Like Mr. Porsch said, we're 2 students of the team that is at the Axel Springer Journalism School right now. I don't know why that is doing it. Maybe. I'll just start. it is like Mr. Porsch said. Basically, we're in a very lucky position in Germany. Germany is a very free country, and we have freedom of the press. We have basically everything we need, but still, we, the students, ask ourselves, and hopefully we'll be able to see it, maybe not, I don't know. We asked ourselves, how free is the press in even such a free country as Germany is? We were just wondering, maybe we shouldn't take it for granted, maybe freedom of the press, even in a country like Germany, is not something that is normal, and we were just asking ourselves, how free is the press actually in Germany? That's why we created an online magazine that Mr. Porsch just introduced, and we're unfortunately not able to see. And we actually found some answers. Very good, thanks. We actually found some answers to our question, how free the press in Germany is. And these answers were, at some parts, scary and made us realize that it is dangerous to take freedom of the press for granted, even in Germany, because even in Germany, at some point, it gets violated, it gets threatened, and those threats and violations we try to cover and tell the stories of these violations in our online magazine. First of all, we took a look at the statistics. As you probably all know, the statistics of the Organization of Reporters Without Borders. They have this statistics, this ranking of countries, how free they are, how not free they are. It's always a bunch, like 170 something. It varies every year a little bit. And the first countries are obviously the ones that are mostly free, and the last ones on the statistics are the ones that aren't. And Germany has number 16 in that statistic. I think it's the Scandinavian countries. It's, you know, Finland and Norway, and it's always them. They're always the best at every statistic, almost, seems like it. And Germany was number 17 last year, and it's number 16 this year. And we were actually asking the experts with Reporters Without Borders why that is. Why is Germany number 16? I mean, it's pretty good, but why isn't it number 5, or why is it number 3? And they were actually telling us a few examples of why Germany has number 16. For example, when reporters were covering the transport of the radioactive material called castor, you maybe heard of it. It's always being shipped from France to Germany. There's always a lot of demonstrations against this transport. There's always a lot of policemen, and there's always obviously a lot of journalists who cover the story and see how it all works out. And there's actually stories about policemen who were attacking journalists even, and making them delete the pictures they took and making them delete the videos that they recorded. And those cases obviously are a violation to freedom of the press and are not, you know, are pretty much frowned upon by the organization Reporters Without Borders. There we go, we can see it a little bit. Perfect. Another case, for example, was in 2005 when staff rooms of a very big newspaper or news magazine in Germany were searched by the Federal Police Office because this magazine published an article using secret information from an informant, and this informant gave this information to the journalists, and obviously the Federal Police Office didn't like that and wanted to find out who the informant is, which is a huge violation to freedom of the press. You cannot show and tell who your sources are, but the police obviously wanted to know that, and they actually looked through the staff rooms and through the computers, and that was a huge violation. Because of these little cases, Germany has the 16th spot, which is, you know, not too bad, but obviously we can get better. And another story that my colleague is going to present also has to do with informants who don't have a too good spot and don't have too much protection in Germany as you might think they would.
Well, yes, we're talking about whistleblowers. Well, for us, they're more than just informants. So for those of you who are not familiar with the term, we talk about whistleblowers when we talk of person who tells the public about alleged illegal activities occurring in, well, government departure, public, private organizations, or companies. Well, and we think without them, democracy would be just missing something. And we wonder, because in Germany, whistleblowers are barely protected by law. So we talked to 2 whistleblowers from Germany who told the public through us journalists about abuses and injustices in their companies. Well, one of them was Guido Strack. He worked for the European Union, and well, instead of listening to him, they kicked him out. And well, already in 2006, he founded the first German whistleblower network. And well, just to show you how it looks like, well, this is the main page, and we have like story packages that deal with different stories. And well, yeah, just let me look for it. Where is the whistleblower? I think, yeah, it just doesn't show the whole page, so it's somewhere over there that we can't see. But we put together.
We did do it, so you know.
Well, Mr. Porsch talked about multimedia, and so we just didn't write it down and put it in the internet. But well, we made videos, we made interviews, we talked to the people, and tried to take the whole range of journalism what we can do. So yeah, that was pretty much our attempt to talk about whistleblowers, to bring it to the public, and well, to show that there's a gap in our system that well, that made it impossible for whistleblowers all to go the right way. So let me just whereas this would be a sign of missing rights for whistleblowers, there are also, for example, ethical reasons that limit freedom of the press. So what we did, we asked today's and former chief editors to tell us a title headline that they, well, deliberately didn't print. So they limited themselves, but for a reason, and Alex is going to talk about it.
Yeah. What we did, we sent out a bunch of emails to former editors-in-chiefs and current editors-in-chief, and asked them what kind of headlines were you going to print, but then ended up never printing, and why is that? And a lot of them answered back to us and told us the story of the headline that they were going to do, but then never did. And we asked them why they didn't do it, and what we did is we created a fake headline, what it might have looked like if they did do it. And I will show you 2 examples of what we thought was, well, all of them were really interesting, but 2 examples now. There was, for example, the newspaper Bild, which is like the biggest newspaper in Germany, and it's a tabloid newspaper and the biggest one. And the editor-in-chief, Kai Dickmann, was actually at the peak of the financial crisis in 2008. He was going to print a headline that was based on speculations that there's actually not enough money left in the banks, because people kept on running to the banks, withdrawing money, and there were actually speculations that maybe there wasn't going to be any money left anymore. And he was thinking about actually printing this headline of saying, das Bargeld wird knapp, meaning no money left maybe. And he was thinking about doing it, and he ended up not doing it because he was really just afraid of the consequences. He was afraid people were just gonna, read that and run to the banks and withdraw all their money, and then the whole crisis would have gotten to a whole other level, and he ended up not doing it. Another story, which we also thought was quite interesting, was from the Spiegel, which is the biggest news magazine in Germany. And there was a story about this well-known bishop where the journalists found out had an affair. And the journalists were thinking back and forth whether they should actually print it or not, and they decided not to do it because, as we heard before, they were saying, this is his private life, it's his privacy, and let's not do it. On the other hand, you could argue, a bishop stands for, a good family, a good marriage and everything, and then he goes off and has an affair on his own, so you could say, why we could print it, but it's arguable, and they ended up not doing it, and because it's his private life. And as we heard before, it's always difficult to differentiate between, the person's right for privacy and the people's right to know about their privacy, and some celebrities, as we also heard before, and we covered that topic as well, and their managers particularly, they want to control almost every single word that is printed about them. And we don't even mean the quotes, but literally the headlines of the article, the captions underneath the pictures, the captions in between the articles. Pretty much they want to control every single journalistic piece of work that you have and want to control what you write. And Max is going to tell you a little bit more about that.
Well, yes. Well, a part of the daily coverage in newspapers is, yes, we'll interview with celebrities such as actors or musicians. And well, what only few know, though, is that many celebrities have, well, I'm saying it like that, unacceptable contracts that they want to sign journalists in order to talk to them. And, well, we're not talking about things that are made up by other people or that celebrities just don't want to talk about. We're talking about things that celebrities want to talk about, but want to change subsequently after interviews. So let's take Heidi Klum. I guess everybody knows her. Well, she always requests interviews, questions days in advance. Well, there's no chance for a spontaneous, for a real interview. So how much journalism is that for us? Well, it's only what she wants to say, and so that's just a little example. Well, and another example is the band Linkin Park, for example. So if you're if they want you to sign a contract that says photographers at a concert are only allowed to take pictures of the band but not of the audience. So they only want you to show like a really small piece of that. Well, and the contracts that we have also said that the management is allowed to confiscate any photo equipment or anything. So, well, once again, the question: how much is left of journalism for us if we want to cover those stories? Yeah, there are many more examples like that. We have many contracts from different bands and actors, and they all look the same pretty much. They all want to, well, threaten the news coverage about them. So looking at it as single events, it might occur a little bit too much to say that it limits our freedom of the press. But, well, in some it is a really sneaky loss, or as Mr. Porsch says, well, it's freedom dying by inches, and it really does. So with this project, we wanted to call for attention. Not just for us journalists, but for the public, just, well, to tell other journalists as well, don't be a maybe.
Don't take it for granted.
Yes. Okay, so we talked about things that actually really happened. So we went to whistleblowers and we talked to actors, and we wanted to call for things, well, that already have been happened. But then we made this video on this page, which is well, a dark vision kind of. So we asked ourselves, what would freedom of the press look like if it's a society looking if freedom of the press would be missing? It's not like it would be chaos, or it's a very subtle vision of the society. So we would like to show you the video.
Wir sehen hier hinter uns der Ort, wo alle glücklich sind, wo alles schön ist, wo die Entscheidung, alles ist schön, Tag aufs Neue einfach nur richtig sind. Danke dir. Nochmal. Bundeskanzler, schon wieder 100%.
Ja, ich möchte einfach, dass alle Menschen glücklich sind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Ich glaube, ich halte mich mal von dem Ding weg.
Just in relation to the issue about celebrities imposing kind of, highly constraining conditions, why doesn't the media just collectively get together and decide that they won't agree to cover those occasions if those conditions are imposed? And just say, okay, well, we won't cover you then. I mean, presumably the answer is your competitor will cover it, but can't you just get together and agree that you won't submit to these conditions, in which case the celebrities will have no publicity? And without the publicity, they're not celebrities, so they will eventually come round, surely. To show, grow some balls, we would say.
Well, yes, we tried it. We were talking about the photographers and the concerts, and photographers got together and they said, well, let's not cover it, let's not take pictures. But there are always people that still go. And, well, I think it's the same with celebrities. Well, in this case, there are a lot of newspapers, a lot of magazines, and somebody would always do it. That's what we think, what happened in the past. So, well.
Yes, Renate Schröder from the International Federation of Journalists. Actually, our members in Germany, it's a Deutscher Journalistenverband in DJU in Verdi and other unions throughout Europe, we have tried that as well because we discussed that and it's really become impossible in recent years, just as you said it, with big singers and but the problem is just as you say, it's only working half-heartedly. There are too many maybe journalists out there and many freelancers who need some pictures and they do it, but we are trying and we continue it, and for any creative ideas we are very happy.
Well, yeah, in the end it's up to us if we print it.
Is there any other question? Okay.
Hi. Well, I'd like to make a comment, a little aesthetical, maybe ethical, on your film. I have 42 years, so I'm 42 years old. I live half my life under the most brutal totalitarian regime in Europe. So trust me when I'm telling you that a society without freedom of the press won't be so cheerful as you present. Thank you.
Just to answer to that, a friend of mine is a professor at the university in Hamburg. She's a psychologist, and I showed her the video, and she said, "I don't get it. What do you think? I will show it to my students and make a real scientific research on that." And one of the results was we do not have a census for the lack of freedom of the press in Germany. And that's what I wanted to say. That's the problem for us. We start to get a census for that if we feel the lack.
And if I may add something to that, we know, I think a lot of us, or most of us know and have an idea of what a country is like without any freedom of the press. And that wasn't even our attempt. We didn't want to show, those countries because we pretty much know what they're like. We wanted to show how it would be still in kind of a free Germany or maybe we have an idea of it. We have an idea of it. And that wasn't our attempt, though. We wanted just to show what it would be like in pretty much a free country is Germany. And that was our attempt, not to show, like, you know what I'm getting at, Cardiff? Good.
Hey, this is my first question in the conference. I'm a bit nervous. Actually, I never studied any journalism, so my question is just, yeah, from an average, normal intern from the ICD. Actually, I'm wondering, because you are really young and just going to start your career in media and journalism. So, well, and this video just really inspired me. And so just, I have this question, because we just heard in it, like, alles ist sehr schön und super, aber so, but, yeah, yeah, so I'll switch back to English now. But isn't it a bit too on the other side right now? So isn't there is a goal of the media that, like, pressure the people too much and put that under too much threat? Because, like, comparing to ages, I don't know, even 20 years before, like, our parents' generation didn't make this much threat in one day because they haven't heard so fast all the bad news around the world, and now they just facing so many bad news in an hour, and they just can read all this really bad thing what's going around in the world. And I don't know, if people feel themselves more under threat, they're gonna buy the newspapers and going to read more, because, like, they want to know what's going on, if they are really in danger or not. And isn't it a bit, I don't know, hide secret goal of the media? Because of this, they can sell more newspaper or something like that. So I was just wondering about this. So shouldn't they also release more news about, yeah, that das Leben ist wirklich schön? Or, I don't know, I'm just wondering about that. Thank you.
Are you saying that it's good if we have more, like, happy news?
Yeah, that was my question. So shouldn't it be more balanced, that not just about really threatening things, but also just, I don't know, more, I know, because that's interesting and that's what people want to hear about, but isn't a bit, I don't know, too overdosing or just the too many bad news? I'm not want to be seem too naive, but just, like, I don't know, being like a balanced news. So yeah, so it's clear now.
I'm actually pretty much on board with you, I think. Like, I'm a very big fan of, you know, why isn't there many more happy news? Why is it always killing and war and fighting? But I guess it's kind of, like you said, people want to read that, people want to know that, and maybe every single one of us needs to, you know, sometimes when deciding good news or bad news, maybe a little one, just take the good news and just, you know, don't be too bloody all the time. I guess you're right about that, but, you know, that wasn't the point that we were going to show. For us, it was just, you know, everything is happy, no one knows what the hell is going on, and that's not a good thing, so.
All right, thank you. Henry Mulak, CBS News out of New York. I'm a foreign correspondent here now, having arrived and then being an expert in the language. I started coaching in English. Some interesting observations. I wish our colleague was still here, coming from a country that may have been the forerunner to anything we consider as free press, since it is the fourth column in our Constitution a free press and has always been unrestricted. It'd be interesting to hear more comments like that about that, because I see what you're saying about Germany. Two observations, if I could. I sit in a room coaching people that do bargaining in political levels at the parliament, the German parliament, the Bundestag, and one person will be from the GDR and the other person will be from West Germany, having grown up in two different systems, and I'll be talking with them about something, trying to get them to use their language so I can hear them talk. Usually you're asking them about their opinions. There'll be two people of the same age, and their ideas of what happened will be so very, very different as to say they would not even be from the same country now. That'd be something to bring out. And then another thing regarding freedom of the press, as I got my credentials here, it was very interesting to me how difficult it was for me to get my credentials to go get into the chancellery, to get into the parliament, to actually report. Just thought that was an interesting observation for me, how difficult it was to be a reporter here, even though I've been a reporter for many years and had plenty of proof on that.
What kind of difficulties did you have?
The application process was mind-boggling. Mind-boggling.
Like
Yeah.
especially for you, or just because of the
bureauc-
bureaucracy?
The
Okay.
bureaucracy and what they required, and the fact that I had to prove I was a full-time journalist before I was actually a journalist here. So I had to kind of do this tap dance and bring in people from the United States, even though I had plenty of experience and plenty of material showing that I'd done it in the past. Just an observation.
I just had a comment regarding, if I'm also not sure if I understood it, regarding the balanced reporting. Unfortunately, the colleague from Romania has left because actually last year we lobbied hard against a draft law in Romania on balanced reporting, which came out of the presidential office. We thought it was completely ridiculous and very dangerous, and fortunately it didn't get through, but very closely. So I'm glad we don't have balanced reporting.
Yes, of course, the law didn't pass, but in our paper, it is called Evenimentul Zilei, the day of the event, the event of the day. We are trying to publish good news. We have all kinds of killing, murdering, bloody articles, but we are also trying to offer something else to our readers, because they are reading all that shit, but they really, really want stories about people that have succeeded, stories about, I don't know, things that are good and can make your life beautiful. Not to, it's already hard to, so you have to give something else to the public.
Once again, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Dorota. I work in a legal NGO in Poland, in a program that actually gives legal support to the journalist. I'd like to ask two questions, particularly interesting from the point of view of the job I do. First concerns the question of self-regulation, the things you were talking about, the code of conduct. How do you actually make sure that your journalists stick to those rules? In other words, how do you actually impose the codes of conduct? How do you execute them? That's the first question, and quick second question concerning the project. I'm interested, like, what are actually the biggest legal obstacles to the freedom of expression that you observed during your project? For example, in Poland, I would say the most actual issues are, for example, the question of the criminalization of defamation. So, whether there should be just civil liability or also criminal liability. And the second question, which is even more, the second issue, which is, I think, even more important, the access of certain intelligence services to the telecommunication data of journalists stored by telecommunication service providers, which obviously raises the question of the protection of the sources of information. Yeah, thank you.
To answer the first question, our code of conduct, we deal with this not on the level of law or something like that, that aims for transparency. That's the main goal of our code of conduct, and that means responsible are the heads of the different editorial departments, and we have this code of conduct since November or December 2011, so it's very young. And as I already mentioned, the goal is transparency and a vivid discussion. The same is with our constitution, with our 5 essentials. That is not the law. You as a journalist have to do this and that is right and that is wrong. That won't work. We are journalists. We want to have freedom. But we want them to have a vivid discussion about that and to get it in conscience. And about the project?
Well, yes. I don't think it's a question about what is the most illegal or abusive thing that we discovered, because the stories are a lot different from each other. I mean, we talked to war journalists that told us horrifying stories, fighting for press freedom. Well, but we did have trouble with the celebrities. Before we printed it, we had to take legal advice, and people told us, well, if you print that, you're gonna have to pay a lot of money. And so, well, it's always like that with celebrities. But it's not about the most illegal thing. Well, we were shocked about the ranking of 16th place of Germany, about the lawyers and everything. I mean, that wasn't the question of the project. It was just to show a range of stories that deal with the topic, freedom of press.
And funny enough, the only article that we actually had to have like legal advice for was the celebrity article, which is just kind of ridiculous because you think, you know, there's so much more important things. But that was the article where we actually had lawyers look over. Otherwise, we would have been, you know, sued.
All right, well, on that note, I would ask you to please join me in expressing our gratitude both to Mr. Porsch as well as the students. Thank you very much.